Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. And soon hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap pause, but the gavel went down just a couple of minutes ago. Hello everyone, thank you very much for your patience waiting for this closing press conference of the Geneva meetings. The plenary extended for a lot longer due to a gap. Do we need to restart this? Charlotte is here. Okay, great, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a very long 2 weeks for all of these assembled panelists here. They've been busy working with governments on the Geneva meetings, the three concurrent meetings of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Given that we've got such a large panel and we've got a little time, we are going to launch into questions. So just letting our panelists know here is we've got reporters in the room here in Geneva, but we've also got people who are watching us online, and I'll be reading out questions from our online group. So we'll go back and forth between questions in the room and online. Let me just introduce to our people online the launch into questions. So just letting our panelists know here is we've got reporters in the room here in Geneva, but we've also got people who are watching us online, and I'll be reading out questions from our online group. So we'll go back and forth between questions in the room and online. Let me just introduce to our people online the launch into questions. So just letting our panelists know here is we've got reporters in the room here in Geneva, but we've also got people who are watching us online, and I'll be reading out questions from our online group. So we'll go back and forth between questions in the room and online. Let me just introduce to our people online the launch into questions. So just letting our panelists know here is we've got reporters in the room here in Geneva, but we've also got people who are watching us online, and I'll be reading out questions from our online group. So we'll go back and forth between questions in the room and online. Let me just introduce to our people online the launch into questions. So just letting our panelists know here is we've got reporters in the room here in Geneva. The first one to ask. Michelle, okay. And when you speak, please speak up loudly so we can hear from you.
Okay. Yeah, my question is
and the question is addressed to whom?
Yes, please, yes.
Yes, well, this is about the global post-2020 framework.
Yes.
So I would address it more to, I guess, Mr. Mrema or Mrema. My question is, I've heard that a lot of organizations, observers are quite frustrated because they say there was little progress made during these 2 weeks. What do you have to say to that?
I'll start and maybe Francis can add.
Could you say your name when you're going to speak? Because it just helps for broadcasting purposes.
Basil Van Haaf. What we see here is a normal negotiation process, but in extraordinary circumstances of COVID. So this is the first meeting after 2 years of working online, and our planning was made in the sense that tried to make best advantage of the online work. What we realize arriving here is people need to talk. They need to get it out of their chest and say what they have to say. And it's for us to adapt to that, which we did. But we turn an important corner. We're now into negotiation. This is not anymore text. This is the text of the party. So Francis and I are totally happy with the amount of progress we've made here. We just have to adapt and change. Francis.
Yes, as the co-chair has said, first, my name is Francis Ogwa, co-chair of the Post-2020. So as my co-chair has said, what you would have expected here is that parties having spent these 2 years without meeting, when opportunity came like this, the draft one, which was what we crafted as co-chairs, having heard from the consultations meetings we have had, including the second meeting of the working group, means that they would come here and really begin trying to share with each other their positions or their views on what they see about goals, targets, sections of that framework. So we don't see less progress here. We see that parties have set themselves on a course to now negotiate further in a meeting which will take place in June. So it has not gone to waste. There is hope they are now going to even focus more because they've known what each one of them is expecting out of the framework.
Very good. We'll take another question. Emma Farge from Reuters, yes?
Hi, good evening. I was wondering if you could react to the call for $700 billion a year from wealthy countries to finance the global biodiversity gap. It just seems a lot more than the $60 billion that I'd seen NGOs calling for. So how would you explain such a big ask? And I'd be interested in the co-chair's perspective on how wealthy countries are reacting to that. Do they think that they can give more? Can they give something that amount? And what was the feedback from them on this ask?
Maybe I could start and I think there is it's important to understand the various pieces of the finance puzzle. There is a piece that is about decreasing the cost. and what we're drafted in the framework and what parties will be negotiating is that decrease, which is amounting, if you look at the most harmful subsidies from several studies, including the OECD, amount to about 500 billion per year. So this is about decreasing costs. What we also need to do is bring up resources. And in target 18, we're suggesting that we need to bring the number from 160, which is kind of the current spending globally, to 200. We have a panel of experts on financial matters in the CBD, and they have made a report recently that more or less validate those numbers. You can go up a little bit, you can go down, you can discuss what's in, what's out, but that's the right kind of ballpark of what it is. So not surprised that the parties will be coming up with different numbers and different approach. There will be a negotiation.
Yeah, I think the other side of the story is that when we are talking about that huge amount of money, maybe the people just start focusing, that is so much money being asked for. But biodiversity is securing our own survival on this planet. It is not a joking matter. If biodiversity were to go, I don't know who will live here. Because you're talking of medicine, you're talking of food, you're talking of clean water, you're talking of clean air, you're talking of every day that you live as a human being is on biodiversity. So that's the first thing, that we're investing for our own benefit now and the benefit of the generation to come. And there is no negotiation on that. If we joke with it, well, the world will be a very difficult place for people to live in. But having said that, we also should be looking at opportunity to harmonize resource mobilization for climate change and biodiversity, because these two are so linked that if you only invest in climate change and say you park biodiversity for now, you could come back and the amount of money you need here would be perhaps even, I don't know how many billions or trillions of dollars now you need, and you might be overwhelmed. So given that close linkage between biodiversity and climate change, I think every time that governments are talking about mobilizing for climate change, they should do the same for biodiversity. In fact, if you say you are going to invest 100 billion in climate change, maybe annually, then why wouldn't we say out of that, maybe 50 billion is going to go for biodiversity, 50 billion for climate change, so that we don't seem to be fatiguing the same, developed countries. You are saying biodiversity is land degradation, climate change, it will be species. So they seem to be getting overwhelmed. But I think we need to strategize and see how best to make use of the available resources there. But we don't need to delay action on biodiversity. I think climate change is the most important now, and we shall get to biodiversity later. It will be catastrophic.
I'm going to now take a question that comes from Patrick Greenfield, and it'll come to Elizabeth, in fact, here. Patrick,
I wanted to contribute.
You want to
on
contribute?
this one.
Go ahead, you take that one first, and then we'll recap Patrick's question.
My also understanding of that increase of financial resources to 700 billion, it is not intended that all of it also will come from the donors. That's why it says also from all sources, international and domestic.
Yeah.
And the framework is also underlying the fact that at domestic level, we are looking at implementation on the basis of whole of society, whole of government, and through mainstreaming. So in terms of avoiding duplication, then of course resources will be able to be better streamlined by getting all the sectors of the economy being able to undertake activities which have core benefits on different themes. And that's where resources also will come in. When we look at national level again, resources from, for instance, accruing from tourism and then going back to biodiversity conservation. So those are again domestic resources which will help also implementation of the framework. So we should not look at 700 billion to all be coming from the donors. There are also resources at domestic level. And that's what one of the co-chairs talked of, repurposing and redirecting harmful subsidies, but also redirecting domestic resources to biodiversity. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Elizabeth. So the question we have from Patrick Greenfield, I think you've dealt with the finance one, because he said, can we see a way through for agreement on digital sequence information and on financing? He says, is there any concern of any sorts of failures for that as well? So Elizabeth, why don't you start with that, and then we'll move to the co-chairs.
I'm not sure I can have an answer particularly on DSI, but sitting here in terms of finances, DSI, of course, is also being viewed as a source of resources. And when we talk of access and benefit sharing, that benefit sharing is also resources coming in to those providing that information. That's how I can connect. And therefore, of course, those who provide the information would want to see what they get in return. And that's the finance. And that can be part of that resource mobilization equally.
Great. Would the co-chairs like to comment on the DSI issue?
Well, very quickly, this afternoon you saw a major step forward on DSI with this agreement and the way forward and a work plan. There was a little bit of process to figure out, but you could see that within 20-30 minutes there was an agreement that was found on the floor. Quick phone call to one party that was not present in the room and could not be with us. All that done in a very collegial way, and I think the message is one of encouragement and hope. Like we're moving forward at very significant pace.
Yes, I think DSI is also coming up in respect of access and benefit sharing as provided for. If you look at the Nagoya Protocol on access to benefit sharing, there are of course debate going on whether you could anchor it within there or it is not within there, within the provision of the Nagoya Protocol. So that debate is, as my coach has said, is still going on, and I think we have to be patient a little bit and see how parties will conclude it. And once they have concluded the discussion on DSI, we shall be guided as co-chairs to see how we reflect it in the post-2020. But at the end of it all, it should be there. But it is a parallel discussion also going on with post-2020 process.
One more question from Patrick Greenfield as well is he'd like to know, where do you feel there's been the most progress this week in the Global Biodiversity Framework?
Yes, I will start, but co-chair will try to also will add. Looking at the document that came out of that meeting, yeah, and what we are taking to Nairobi for negotiation, I would say that what we have succeeded is getting the views, getting the feelings of parties as they are now. But somewhere you will find that there are some which have got more square brackets than the other. But that may not signal that you are going to have an easy discussion in Nairobi. It could even end up with more. So our appeal is that now that we've had that, perhaps we are going to move faster. But when you look at goal B and C, it seems there was relatively good progress there, because I don't see as half a paragraph of half a page of some of the text you see in some of those other either goals or targets. So perhaps that signal that parties seem to have tried to reach a common understanding on those. But we'll see their moods when we get to Nairobi. Yeah.
I think we should not be looking at those 2.5 weeks or just the meeting on the framework. There has been some really important piece done under Substat and SBI, and those will be critical to us. So it's like you would be asking a farmer, having plowed a field, which part of the field is better plowed. And the hope is to get it really square and well done all around.
Yeah, I was hoping we could move to talk to Hezekiah a little bit, because we did get a question from the Bangkok Tribune about the nature of the indicators. But Hezekiah, could you talk about the great progress in Substat?
Yes. Of course, we need to measure where are we departing from, and how at the global level or national level we're making progress in implementation. So I think it was an excellent progress in these weeks, analyzing more than 40 different indicators, assessing feasibility and how much this is really reflecting progress on the different goals and targets on the draft so far. So, and also there were more than 100 new indicators proposed by the parties that we need to also assess and to see if these are responding to the final version of goals and targets in the framework, and how much this is applicable at national level, and how far the statistic institutions at national level can help. Some of them are official information. Some of them can be the product of different alliances of institutions all around the planet to measure progress. And I'm very happy to see this serious work by the parties, scientific and technical work being done. There's still more to be assessed, and also to identify gaps and to fill them in the intersessional period and also after the COP. So we're very happy to see how are we going to measure whatever is agreed on the goals and targets.
Can I turn to Charlotte, because the SBI had a big agenda that was heavily in supportive of the GDF.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I will just add on to what Hisiki just said. I think the SBI has a lot of agenda items that are more or less all of them directly linked to the development of GBF, and will also help for the support of implementation and the discussion resource mobilization, mainstreaming, cooperation among organization initiatives, and we talk about capacity building. So many items that are, of course, I would say that we have really considered, what we have done is we have completed our agenda. We have taken a decision on, I think it's more or less 20 recommendations, both for conference part and the conference parts for the Nagoya and Katarina protocol. But at the same time, many of those draft recommendations is crucial for the discussions at the GBF. So I think we now have some kind of understanding and language that can be drawn upon in the coming discussion in Nairobi. And we have also taken a decision on intersessional work to try to further understand, collect views, and get a better discussion that also is planned to help the discussion in Nairobi as well. So even if there are, of course, many brackets left in our draft decisions and draft recommendations, it's also, I think many times because the parties feel it needs to be seen as a package in the end. So it's not always that they are a total disagreement, but also that they need to make sure that everything will seen together in the very end. So, but I'm very happy that we have concluded our work so far, and as I see it will be very helpful, I guess, for the discussion in Nairobi as well.
I guess Emma again, and then we'll turn to other people in the room. Emma, go ahead.
If I may, as you start sharpening your targets ahead of Kunming, I imagine you might come across some powerful vested interests. I'm thinking about agricultural companies, I'm thinking about pesticide makers. I'm just wondering if you consider that big business could be a major challenge in getting an ambitious framework agreed.
I'll turn around the question. I think big business is an opportunity, and you know, we're not talking a world where we're going to be stopping producing food. We're talking about for a world where we're going to need to feed 500 million more people in 10 years. So one thing is for sure, people will be fed, and we all want that. So it is about how we're going to be doing it, and if you talk to agrochemicals, it's about what will they be doing in the future, and it's going to be a very different future. It's going to be a hard transition that will be turning on its head the model, but it's a future where they're going to be prosperous, doing very different things. That's for sure. And I think what I was looking for is who's going to be the Elon Musk of pesticides and nutrients? Who's going to be turning that industry around? And that's what I'm looking for. Somebody that will come in with totally different attitude and force the industry into a very different way.
Yeah, but also look at it this way, that really biodiversity, when you conserve it, it enables you as maybe people in agriculture or business to have a much more secure future, whatever you are investing in there, because you need pollinators, you need all services from the environment to sustain that business. Now, if you invest somewhere and the place is polluted and the bees disappear, other pollinators disappear, you could impact negatively on people. even on your own business. So really biodiversity is there to give business security. Perhaps what we need to do more is create that understanding if it is not well understood. But where there is biodiversity loss, you may find less investment in agriculture there or other. So where there is much more diversity of plants, animals, you find more investment there. That tells you the linkage that is happening there. So nature is giving a service that benefits business. So business, agriculture, they need to be part of implementing this framework other than not being within there. And that's why there is an attempt to have this time a target business.
Ezekiel, you wanted to react to this as well?
Yes, yes. This is a meeting point of different tracks where we see, as Basil said, this is an opportunity to change the way we do things. We need to keep producing food for more people, but in a more environmentally friendly way. This is an opportunity to, instead of few species, to recognize the varieties, the domestication processes, the different races, to maintain living genetic diversity, and not only in gene banks, but to recover traditional knowledge, and maintain a diverse diet that is more healthy, more compatible with the environment. And this is part of the challenge. How are we going to measure how we reduce pollution from agriculture and erosion, and how we restore ecosystems and maintain this diversity in a better way to feed the planet? And it is possible. So it is an opportunity for new investments in biodiversity, for more fair and sharing of benefits on value chains, including wildlife, including forests, including timber and non-timber. So it is an important transition that we need to measure and to bring biodiversity agenda beyond the comfort zone, beyond the biologists, but to get mainstreaming with different productive sectors, including agriculture, tourism, energy, industry, and to see different ways to do things. This is where we see that can be an important increase in the energy to move this. And energy means money and investment and budgets from different ministries all around the planet in all countries. When they contribute for conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity, can make the change. And this is part of what we're trying to do.
Elizabeth, you wanted to react to this too?
Yes, I think we need to also remember the important statement made by the representative at the closing Business for Nature, where she clearly indicated, that constituents of business are ready, and they're even calling for a stronger target, basically to make that requirement of risk assessment, impact assessment, dependence reporting, and the opportunity Ezekiel is talking about, mandatory as opposed to being voluntary. So they agree business as usual will not work. And they also know the opportunity on business because of that dependence. Because recent studies tell us 50% of the global GDP is dependent on nature. And who is that? Who are those dependent? That's the business, the financial sector, the insurance companies, the estate management, and the like. So the fact that the business are ready for mandatory requirements, clearly business is ready to take action. And the business currently are in the process of they themselves developing a framework on risk management and disclosure framework under the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosure. Again, the business for the business. So they are ready, but waiting for the government to really also create that enabling environment with appropriate policies and regulations and make it mandatory so that then there's no escape to disclose and report.
Great, thank you. Other questions from here in Geneva? Okay, I'll take a question that we've got from the floor here. Let's see, we've got Natasha Gilbert. Natasha was saying, she's saying, what happens if the extra June meeting doesn't result in sufficient progress? Will the deal go to the COP anyway? So this famous June meeting that was announced now. So I guess maybe I'll just work my way across here. I'll put Elizabeth on the spot right off the bat.
June meeting will have to make progress. If we've made progress here, why not June? Of course, June might not finish all the work expected to be finished or remove all the brackets, but then that's why we'll have the time to COP to do that. But I think for the co-chairs is to avoid leaving again a backlog to the COP. That's the essence. Why then the parties, governments here have decided to have this another meeting to really make progress. So progress will be made. And I think we're all looking forward towards that.
So I think I will turn to the co-chairs now. You'll be next on the spot. Francis, what can you say?
About that?
Yes, about this.
Yes, I have to just agree with the Executive Secretary and add that we don't expect to come up with the same text that we are going to take to Nairobi.
Yeah.
When Nairobi ends, it will be different. There will be progress, definitely. Those square brackets, that is almost everywhere. That's what we are going to work on, to see where possible we don't have them. And if they remain, there should be fewer. So that is what we want there, a much cleaner text going forward to COP15, so that we spend less time, if possible, at COP15. We cannot really see that we shall leave Nairobi like the way, with what we have here. No, there will be progress, definitely.
That's it?
Not much to add. You know what? Obviously, what we want is to bring to Kunming a text that is focused with the brackets and some area that will remain to be discussed at the end. And that's ministers will come and they will help us in the final throw of the discussion. What we want to do is in Nairobi to clean all the text as much as possible and identify those key elements: resource mobilization, level of ambition. That would be requiring engagement of ministers to find the right bliss points.
Okay. I'm going to go back. There's a question from Daniela Chiaretti of Valor Economica online. One of the questions she asked, she said, listen, is there going to be a new target on gender?
Gender, the key point is what is the place of gender in the framework? And we're only starting the discussion. We've proposed in our reflection document a new section with overarching principle. Gender is there, and then we have the targets in the current draft with gender. Parties will have to discuss how they see the issue of gender and what's the best way to capture the gender issue in the framework. There is no one way to do this. There is several ways. And it's going to be important to have a good discussion and find where the parties want to be in the end.
I'm going to move to Charlotte because, in fact, the Gender Plan of Action was approved by the SBI.
Yes, thank you. I just would like to mention that actually one of the achievements that we did at the SBI was we could decide on a new Gender Plan of Action. We have had good discussions already. We had a contact group and friends with chair. I think it was a very fruitful discussion indeed. So this Gender Plan of Action, even if, of course, there are some brackets still left, I think it would also be important contribution for this discussion, and I think it will be also will also inform the discussions on the new target or not.
Maybe just to add something on that too. If I look back on the strategic plan for biodiversity 2011-2020, it was adopted then without a gender action plan, and then we began, as we started implementing that strategic plan, to start discussing, the gender action plan and so forth. So there was time element there. There was time lost on gender issues. But this time, the beauty of it is that gender issues are being raised, and there's effort to make sure that it becomes part of the package as we conclude the framework. So we expect that once implementation is on, gender issues also will be addressed, and we should go straight to implementation, not to go back again and you're caught up that time.
Okay, very good. Any other questions from here? Okay, I'll take another one from online. This one is from Slow Food, and this will be for you, Hezekiah. They wanted to talk a little bit about the discussions relating to agricultural biodiversity here at the talks. In particular, you had that one decision on soil biodiversity. Wonder if you could comment on that.
Well, I think, again, it's very important to expand the frontiers from biodiversity to engage in particular with agricultural sectors, collaboration with the FAO, which includes agriculture, forestry, fisheries, how to produce more in a sustainable, traceable and legal way food and other products is essential. And engage with the ministers of agriculture. If you compare the budget of ministers in agriculture in all countries, is higher than the environment. So it's key to have a good liaison with them, to work together, and to help to measure the way we do things in terms in ecosystem conservation, species, and at genetic level for wild species, but also domesticated species is very important. And I think it's key to produce more food in a more efficient way and more friendly with biodiversity. So the path is there. The decision is moving in that direction, and it's good to know that, for example, FAO has its own mainstreaming biodiversity into the agricultural sectors. I think it's an excellent opportunity, and we can use this example also with other sectors like tourism and many more.
Great, thank you. I'm going to combine a couple of questions. This is both from Patrick Greenfield of The Guardian, but also Natasha Gilbert. So this is a question of the timing of COPs. So Natasha's saying, so are we looking at another delay of the COP? To what time? And then Patrick Greenfield's question is, it says, at what point in time does delaying of the COP become a challenge or problem for the process? So sorry, Elizabeth, I'll put you on the spot for that one.
So far, we are not looking at further delaying of the COP. We are actually waiting for a host country government of China to announce the exact dates. Of course, internal consultations in the country is still being held. But what is clear, we are looking at end of August, early September. So the COP is there, unless, fingers crossed, another crisis comes in. But the way we are going, the COP will be there. We're only waiting for the dates. Yes, in terms of challenge, it's true, the challenge is there. For instance, for us at the Secretariat, is where invitations are yet to go out. And calendars, particularly of the high-level ministers, are getting full with all the COPs virtually this year. So that worries, and I think I can consider it also as a challenge. But also even for the participants themselves, delegates and others, to be able to definitely plan and benefit, let's say, on reasonable tickets by having them earlier than just a month or so before the COP. So there are those organizational challenges, but we hope that soon the dates will be announced so that then all the organizations' aspects can move on smoothly.
Okay. We have Jamie Keaton of Associated Press online. And Jamie wants to maybe go back a little bit just to the Nairobi, the June meetings. He was saying, I mean, he says what prompted the need for it, but I think maybe the question could be phrased in terms of what do we need to accomplish in that Nairobi meeting in June? Just to repeat for him, because he's picking up on this.
Yes, I think as we said earlier, from here we have come up with the document itself, the post-2020, that still needs to be, worked on, because we have so many square brackets from here. So what has prompted us going to Nairobi is that we want to reduce as much as possible, if even possible is a dream, not have square brackets going to COP. So basically we want a much cleaner text taking to COP. That is what is taking us there. Because from here, parties have expressed their views, their interests, and hence we have so much square bracket, which there was no time to do. Time was not available to discuss it here. So that's what is taking us there.
It looked like Basil took his glasses off to...
No, not really. Negotiation process are all different, and as co-chair, what we're trying to do is adapt to what is needed. So there is not a single recipe, and we see where we are and we see what is needed, and we try to make it happen with the support of the Secretariat.
Okay, thank you very much. Jamie asked one more question here. The question from Jamie, I guess this could be to you, Elizabeth, is how reasonable would it be for China to want to wait to see real progress before announcing a date for COP15?
I don't think China is waiting for progress to be made. It's only waiting for its own internal processes to be complete. Because you see, to announce the dates is also part of being ready.
Questions? More questions from the floor here? Nothing more
Okay.
from here. Let me see. One more. Okay, so we've got Zach Smith from the National Resources Defense Council. We'll get this one here. This will be to you, Hesikio. He says, while we understand that this work is a political process, will there be a scientific assessment to examine if the final GBF is adequate to address the biodiversity crisis? So this comes down to the scientific underpinning of the framework and the monitoring, etc.
Yes, yes. SUBS has been working to prepare the monitoring framework, following closely evolution of goals and targets. And part of the decisions we have for coming is the establishment of an expert group on indicators that's going to be working after COP to final tuning of the monitoring framework and to present again for consideration of the scientific body to fill gaps and to be sure that most elements are ready as headline indicators or component indicators or complementary indicators in order to measure all the different dimensions, because one thing is to measure conservation. If you talk about protected areas, but it's different endangered species or genetic level, or how do you measure sustainable use, how do you measure benefit sharing, pollution. It's very important to be very careful. So it's a process that will be accompanying the framework and to fill gaps and to continue. And also this includes capacity building, technology transfer among all countries to have a common way to measure and to report in a regular basis to progress along the decade.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from here?
Well, if it has one
Please, go
closing
ahead.
one, if I'm allowed, I'm interested. You spent a lot of time together. I understand that sometimes negotiations have gone until 3 a.m. Can you give us some color? What were the highlights and the lowlights of this very intense fortnight?
I think we need this afternoon a female delegate came to me and noted that the way we conduct the negotiation is not fair. Because we do those add-ons and it's mostly men and it's hard for a woman to get in. And we need to think about that. That's the low point for me. And I'm not blaming anything, I think we need to find a better way to do it. And the high points is to see that at 3 a.m. in the morning, people are willing to make compromise and get and work.
Well, I think for me the low point is that really sometimes parties take so long to agree on something. And yet, if they were to be as flexible, perhaps they wouldn't take all that long. So it is that is where there is a bit of a challenge in negotiation. At what time do parties begin to compromise? Sometimes they have to wait until towards 3 a.m. for them to begin realizing we need now to sober up or early in the process. So that discussion basically was on DSI. But the good thing that came from it was that nearly one part of the document, except the annex, was clean. But before that, it wasn't clean. A very positive development came, but it drained people, it drained participants, that it took so long for them to reach that. So that is where, if parties could begin to learn from each other, how fast they could reach that level of compromise and understanding, instead of draining, the little energy they have until the following day in the morning and things like that. So that was the low part for me, that they take so long. But the good part of it is that they have agreed on a clean text that can take us forward to discuss issues on DSI. As I told you, DSI is a parallel process running with post-2020. And so we have adopted recommendation here that will allow that process to continue until, of course, they will address the annex to that recommendation, which has brackets. So that is it I would say about it. It has that mixed part of everything.
And if I may comment on that as well, I think for me maybe one of the lowest point is that in many draft recommendations, it was more or less like a Christmas tree that many delegations want to have a lot of texts that are more or less all over the place, but it's not really necessary, not so focused, and we didn't really have time to solve those issues, because I think it was that leave maybe unnecessary brackets, because it's just we didn't have time really to discuss why it was needed there and maybe it wasn't needed. But on the other hand, I've been so impressed by many of the delegates that they are so very well prepared and also have a cooperative spirit in many issues. Sometimes I've been surprised by some delegation really wanted to help and try solutions even on the issues that I wasn't aware that there was so active interest also in other areas than maybe they spoke on normally. So I have seen this corporate spirit growing, I would say, and I think that is very promising for the coming discussions.
Elizabeth, Ezekiel, you haven't weighed in yet on your highs and lows?
Well, I think, well, some negotiations have this say that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. I think that the pieces of the puzzle are like floating around, so you don't see anyone in the right place yet, but they are like accommodating in the air as we move in Nairobi to China, and you will see that suddenly when everything is ready, all pieces will be together in the right place. So I'm confident.
I think for me, moving forward, and as I live here, also a bit worried. What we have seen and what we are seeing in the document now are all the views from different individual, mostly delegations. So moving to Nairobi is to see how those different views, convergent and divergent views, now will come together and really reduce those texts, because co-chairs have kept on reminding we need a framework which is simple, communicable, and that can be understood by those who are not negotiators to be able to implement. As it is now, it's only us who have been here can understand it. Nobody else can understand it as it is. So we hope by the time we arrive in Nairobi, these discussions will continue even before we arrive to Nairobi, so that now as parties are preparing themselves, they look again at those paragraphs and begin seeing where will my compromise reach, how far down or up will be able to reach if the others are insisting on their positions, so that by the time we're in Nairobi, at least options already come from them up front at the beginning, and not wait until 3 a.m. on the last day.
Okay, great. There's like a couple of questions I do want to capture from online, and at the risk of, because that was such a nice question to wrap it up, but just there's a couple of technical things here. Natasha Gilbert is saying, so could we really get a sense of, under DSI, can we get a picture of what was agreed and what we did here on DSI? And that'll answer questions from a number of other people.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think, Coach, I'll add what was agreed, as I'll repeat it again, is just to allow the consultation which is going on DSI to continue. That is the major thing. But in terms of concluding the discussion on DSI, is not yet. So it was just for recommendation to come from here, allowing that discussion to continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Daniela Chiaretti, and she's from Valor Econômica from Brazil, but she asks, so, is it difficult to have a level of ambition without the United States?
So, being from Canada, I'll probably provide you with a perspective. Is the United States? Yes, it would be great to have the United States as part of a full member of the negotiation. I think we all would want that, but they're there. They're part of the action. They've been present, engaging in discussion. There would not be a DSI discussion without the United States at the table. So. And then you can see that they are part of some very specific discussion. They have committed to 30 by 30. They're engaged into financing efforts to stop deforestation. So it is, you know, it's the cousin that may not be always at the table, but is there and is a very important part of the equation.
Yeah, just to add there, that actually, even then, when you look at the way the benefit of biodiversity flows, it crosses borders. It doesn't mean that something that says in Uganda ends up only in Uganda. Look at the River Nile, with all the ecosystem we protect there, and it flows all the way. So the United States definitely participates, as Kocha is saying, but maybe as other governments, we always give the flow to other governments. So I think it is in their best interest, maybe one time, to join us, for sure. And we tackle this global problem. When I say join, to ratify. Because they're already there.
Yes, they already
working.
signed it.
They
Yeah.
signed it.
Good.
Yeah, they signed it, they have not ratified it.
Yeah.
So maybe one day we will see that.
Okay, thanks very much. I think I'm going to let our panelists go. They've had a long time. We've already been here for about 50 minutes. So thank you very much to the chairs and the executive secretary for joining us. Thank you to the media here and those who joined us online. So have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.